Welcome back into the NFL with AJL, episode 96. We are live on a Tuesday. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're right here tapped in with JV and I on the show. And for that, we are forever grateful. Hope y'all have had a great week so far, a great finish to February, and a great start to March. And if you're still adjusting from the daylight savings time, I totally don't blame you. We got a packed NFL free agency show tonight on episode 96. Before we get going, though, y'all can jump in the comments. Let us know if the connection is good. It was a little bit of like a stall right when we went to go live when I went to press the intro music as well. Of course, before we get started, y'all please make sure to like and share the stream wherever you may be watching. Subscribe on YouTube. Hit the bell so you never miss a post. We've been going big on Instagram and TikTok lately. Thank you guys for all the love on the Seahawks video and a ton of love that you've been showing me on the content, especially when we talk about the Eagles, the Saints, and etc. So we couldn't be more grateful for that. Also, check out JV on YouTube as well at The Real JV Show, or it might just be Real JV Show. He's got his podcast going. He's got his reels and shorts going as well. Check him out on TikTok and Instagram as well, as he makes some of the best content in the game. No doubt about it. The QR code there will give you every bit of social media and podcast content. If you can't find us, you're simply not looking hard enough. At NFL with AJL, at the JV Show on all social media platforms, and wherever you get your podcasts as well. Like I said, we got a packed show tonight. We're going to be grading a good bit of NFL free agency moves, talking about the Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons drama as well. Some best teams for the remaining free agents that are on the board, and then I'll have JV pop out at the end, and we'll talk about some New Orleans Saints free agency. I know that was a lot to chew on, JB, but I appreciate you always bearing with me, man. How you doing tonight? It's always great to have you in.
AJ, I appreciate it. I'm happy to be back.
It's great to have you, bro. We got a packed show, so let's give the people what they came for and go ahead and tap right into it, as we will be grading these NFL free agency moves. We know it's been one of the craziest free agency periods that we've seen in a while, and it seemed like last year it was pretty crazy also, but nonetheless, we got a ton of moves coming down the pipeline, so we'll start from the top, and we'll just give it a simple letter grade and get rolling with it. The Browns made Myles Garrett the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history, $40 million a year, ties him to the team through 2030, and he's got about $124 million guaranteed. Give me a grade on that one, JV.
Yeah, this one was interesting, AJ. I thought maybe around like the B plus A range. Myles Garrett is it's full boom, right? Like, the production you're going to get out of him. A lot of the big teams wanted him, but for Cleveland, Myles Garrett is great, but you need more, right? So it's good they're retaining their star, their former defensive player of the year. So I think B plus A is solid. They're keeping a guy in the building that I thought wanted out. I think everyone thought he wanted out, but I liked it. I liked it. They need some more now. It's not just Myles Garrett that's going to win him anything.
Right. I'm going to give this an A as well. I think it's really hard to say that signing one of the better players in the league, let alone one of the best players at his position, is hard to give a bad grade for. Now, if you're looking from the aspect of, okay, look at all this money that they just paid him because they still have the Deshaun Watson contract on the books as well. This team's not necessarily going anywhere anytime soon. So we've seen some quick turnaround on NFL teams, but they need a lot more, like you said. And, you could give it a negative grade from that aspect, but paying Myles Garrett, he's worth the money. Maybe you can even argue that he's underpaid, just what he's done in his NFL career already. So I'm going to give that an A. The Bills give Josh Allen a 6-year, $330 million deal extension, rework the contract. I'm not really sure the specifics on it, but we know that he just absolutely got the bag. It's the most guaranteed money in NFL history, over Deshaun Watson's $230 million guaranteed, as now Josh has $250. And this comes after he wins the MVP as well. What you got for a grade?
Yeah, A plus. I mean, I was shocked he didn't get 60, to be honest with you. I mean, Dak's making 60.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's the top of the market, Josh Allen should be getting that. Mahomes is one for me, but Josh Allen is right there. Lamar is right there. So he should be getting as high as he can get. 55, I'm very, very satisfied with. A plus. I don't know what other way I would have it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm going to give it an A as well. You can't knock a solid franchise in the Bills for paying one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, top 3, top 5, wherever you want to put him. We know how we both feel about Josh Allen, and we know how the NFL community feels about him as well. He's going to be tied to the team for a while. Hopefully he can bring some more nice playoff wins, and a Super Bowl win as well. Max Crosby was extended for 3 years, $106.5 million.
Yeah, it's the same case as Myles Garrett. I think B plus. He's an incredible pass rusher, but again, Vegas needs a little more. They got Geno. I think they're kind of building their foundation now with Max Crosby, Gino, a few guys. Maybe they can string some wins together. I've
Yep.
talked about it. They haven't won since '02 in the playoffs. So I
Ugh.
don't mind it. I thought it was good. B plus A.
Yeah, I'm going to give this an A as well. Again, when you pay one of the better players in the league at their position, not only for production, but the locker room presence as well, it feels like he's pretty good in front of the media. We saw him going to bat for Antonio Pierce. I'm not going to knock a team for paying their best player in Max Crosby, so that's going to be an A for me. The Rams signed Davon Adams to a 2-year, $46 million deal. And this is interesting because we know that Cooper Kupp has been granted permission by the team to seek a trade, or rather the team told him, we talked about how odd that was, that he was able to seek a trade.
I would say floor is a B and ceiling is probably an A plus, just depending on Davon Adams' health.
Yeah.
If he's healthy for the entire season, it could be really good. He was on pace to finish top 5 in a lot of metrics last season if he played the full season. And keep in mind, he went from team to team, right? He hopped from Vegas over to the Jets and didn't really have any stability there. He's an elite guy. I'd take him over Kupp right now just because Kupp has the injury history. I thought it was really good, just depending on his health.
Yeah, I'm going to go C, man. And the reason I'm going C here is because you look at Cooper Kupp. We talked about how his 2021 season was kind of an outlier with winning the Triple Crown, doing everything that he did. But it was the age and it was the injury history. And when you look at Davon Adams, I'm not taking away from him the talent he has, because him and Cooper Kupp are very comparable. And if you tried to argue either one for me being better than the other, I would probably understand you, because they're both very good wide receivers. But Davon Adams is an aging receiver. Davon Adams has dealt with some injury history in the past, and, he looks to be mostly healthy than he's been, in the earlier years of his career. We know the turf toe was a big thing that bothered him. So for the context of the situation, I'm going to say a C. Now, that's not a slight at Davon Adams, because we know that Davon Adams is great again, and I think him and Matthew Stafford are going to be one of the better quarterback wide receiver duos that we see in the NFL this year. The Seahawks traded DK Metcalf to the Pittsburgh Steelers for a 2025 second-round pick. He signed a 4-year, $132 million deal.
Yeah, I know. You probably know, AJ. I wasn't a big fan of this. I mean, I posted about it. I'd say B minus, C plus, to be honest with you. DK's great. I thought it was a slight overpay. He's a good receiver, but they do need a quarterback to throw him the ball. And they haven't really locked down Russ. Fields is on the Jets. So unless they go after Rodgers, I don't know what the situation is. Pickens and DK with a quarterback unnamed is absolutely devious. Like, that is insane to have that wide receiver duo and not have a quarterback locked down. So just because of that, I'll say B minus, C plus.
You said B minus or C plus?
Yep.
Okay, I thought you said D minus at first.
No, it's not that bad. Not that bad.
I was like, you really didn't like the move, bro, but I get it. I think $33 million a year for a guy like DK Metcalf is a little steep, but also in the NFL, we just watched Myles Garrett get paid $40 million a year. We are watching guys like Sam Darnold go and get $100 million contracts, like Baker Mayfield go and get $100 million contracts. We see what these players are making now. So I feel like it's almost a moot point to talk about, okay, was it worth it or wasn't it? Because he's still going to make the same dollars. And if he plays up to the strength of the contract, they'll probably extend him, or they'll look to move him so they don't have to deal with that type of production anymore. I'm going to say B, because I do believe DK is one of the better receivers in this league. Now, who's going to be throwing the ball to him? That is very interesting. And here's the thing about it being a B as well. When you see the Steelers in recent years have drafted wide receiver pretty well, and we've also had the Steelers deal with some kind of, diva-ish wide receivers. We've seen a little bit of that out of DK Metcalf. We've seen that with the George Pickens. We've seen that with the Chase Claypool. Obviously, we don't have to mention Antonio Brown. So again, for the context of the situation, I'm going to say a B. The Bears have now signed Joe Thuney from the Chiefs, or traded for him. Jonah Jackson from the Rams, they traded for him as well. And they just signed the center Drew Dahlman from the Atlanta Falcons. What you got for a grade, JV?
Solid A. Depends how these guys work together, but they fixed the interior offensive line for their franchise quarterback. It's a can't miss. I know maybe there are a few question marks around one or two of those players. Joe Thuney was I think 4-time All-Pro or something like that. So that's pretty guaranteed, but anything is an upgrade from what they had last year. Caleb Williams went under around 70, 75 sacks, I think, on the season. It was unreal.
Most sacked quarterback in the
So
league.
they're addressing their needs, so I would definitely say A.
I'm going to say A as well for all the same reasons that you said. When you see Caleb Williams getting pressured the most, getting sacked the most in the league last year, now he was looking a little rough at times, running into some of those sacks. And when you understand who his head coach was at the time, the offensive coordinator, and things of that nature, it is going to make you feel a little sorry for him. You're going to give him some grace, give him some mercy in that situation. But when you talk about bringing in 3 stud linemen, Joe Thuney might have had the discussions about him with the Chiefs last year, whether it was good or bad. I feel like a lot of offensive linemen from the Rams over the last few seasons have been very solid, especially when it comes down to protecting Matthew Stafford. And then Drew Dalman consistently graded as one of the better, if not best, run blocking centers in the league. And we know the Atlanta Falcons have struggled a little bit over the last couple of years to keep a very solid line intact. So I know they hated to lose him, which is a big plus for the Bears. So I'll give it an A as well. The Bears turned right around and signed Grady Jarrett immediately after the Falcons released him.
Yeah, I'd give it B plus. Grady Jarrett was, like you said, snatched up immediately, which kind of tells you the value that he brings. He did have probably one of his worst seasons with the Falcons last year, but that doesn't mean he's still a top guy in the league. That doesn't mean he can still produce, and stopping the run, he's going to be big on that D-line.
Yeah, I'm going to give it an A as well. Grady Jarrett is one of the better defensive linemen in the league, and he provided a lot for the Falcons over the last almost decade that he played for him, especially in the Super Bowl run, multiple playoff games. I feel like, just about every other time an announcer was talking about the Atlanta Falcons making a play on defense or the Falcons defense was getting praise, Grady Jarrett's name was in that conversation, so I'll give it an A as well. The Jets signed Justin Fields, maybe the most interesting free agency move we've seen yet, and this is who they should have picked originally back in 2021, I think it was. But they ended up taking Zach Wilson, of course. Jets signed Justin Fields to a 2-year, $40 million deal.
I'm saying, yeah. I'm going to hop between a C plus and a B minus right now. A lot of people love the move, but my problem is Justin Fields is once again on a team that hasn't had a lot of success recently with a young defensive-minded coach, which is another problem for a quarterback who is still trying to develop. And outside of Garrett Wilson, the weapon situation is a little concerning. They lost Devontae Adams, and I think Alan Lazard is looking for a trade. I don't think he's returning. So a lot of people like it that they're orienting a young quarterback with a young developing team. And I don't have a doubt that Aaron Glenn can get it done, but Justin Fields still requires a lot of development. And I thought he was going to finally get that in Pittsburgh. I guess not. So C plus, B minus.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a C as well. And for you, to piggyback off what you said in Pittsburgh, I felt like Justin Fields was so solid as a Pittsburgh Steeler. And then once Russ was made available, he was healthier. He was able to come in and fill in. But I thought that was such a dig, kind of a confidence killer for Justin Fields, because you finally get to a team to where you feel like it's all being put together. You've got a decent OC in Arthur Smith. You have one of the better coaches in NFL history and in the league today, despite how polarizing Mike Tomlin can be. And it just seems like he's with a mature franchise. It seems like he wanted to save his career when he signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then they go and do him like that. Because when you look over at the Jets depth chart, yes, there's a Breece Hall. Yes, there's a Garrett Wilson, but Lazard's more than likely on the way out. You have a Tyler Conklin who can make some plays when it's doable. And you do have some, names on the line like a Tyron Smith. You do have a Elijah Vera Tucker, AVT as well. But it's I think it's going to be really tough for Justin Fields. Again, rookie head coach in Aaron Glenn, not saying that he doesn't have experience in this league, because we clearly saw what he was capable of with the Lions and then with the Saints before he was with Detroit. So I'm going to give this one a C as well. The Texans traded Laramie Tunsil and a 4th-round pick to the Commanders for a 2nd, 3rd, and 4th rounder. I think they might have just swapped 4th-round picks. How do you feel about this one?
So there's two sides to this. The Texans, I would say B plus. They still need a lot of protection for C.J. Stroud, which is confusing to me why they're just letting the entire offensive line go. That being said, Laramie Tunsil cost them a lot last year. He was, I think, one of the most penalized players in the league, and he was an absolute drive killer. So they move on from him and they go figure out their offensive line. That's fine. If they don't, it's concerning. And then over to Washington, again, I think I'd score it around there, BB plus. They need some offensive line help. Laramie Tunsil will fill in. He'll help out. But again, he will still have that question mark with the penalties and being an ultimate drive killer. So he'll have to figure that out, right, moving forward.
Yeah, 100%. I'm going to give it a B for both sides. I think the reason I give the Texans a B on this one is because, you send him out. Let's just say the fourth rounders are a wash, but getting a second and a third for a lineman, for the elk of Laramie Tunsil, I think that's very respectable. I think when you're talking about CJ Stroud's third season in the NFL, he's going to need to be protected because we don't want to see him go down the path like Joe Burrow has, go down the path like Caleb
Yep.
Williams has before finally getting that help. And even in some of those cases, they're still needing that help. So I think receiving a second and a third, just put that right back into the draft, use it as capital to move another lineman in there. And then, for the Commanders, I'm going to give it a B, if not an A, because Jaden Daniels in his sophomore year, when you look at the numbers for Laramie Tunsil in 2022, he was number 2 of 51 linemen for pressure rate allowed at 2.6. In 2023, he was number 4 of 54 linemen for pressure rate with 3.9. And then last year, he was back at number 2 of 56 linemen for 2.9. Excuse me, this was actually for left tackles with at least 75 pass blocking snaps on the season with a 2.9%. When you put all three of them combined, he was number 2 of 44 left tackles in the league with a 3.1% pressure rate and had over 400 pass blocking snaps. The only one in front of him was Tristan Wirfs, who the Bucs just drafted a few years ago. He was really elite within his rookie season, and he's been one of the better offensive linemen, to play in this league. So I think Laramie Tunsil, for protection purposes, is going to be great with the Commanders, but he's got to clean up being a penalty machine. No question about it, especially with a young team like the Washington Commanders. The Cardinals signed Josh Sweat.
Yeah, from what I saw, and I didn't watch a lot of Cardinals ball last year, I'll be transparent with you, but from what I saw, I believe it's an A. I mean, it was a necessity for the team that they needed to pick up. And Josh Sweat is young, 27 years old, had a great season with Philly. He's proven his worth. Cardinals going to get him. And listen, the Cardinals last year, yeah, they didn't make the playoffs, but they were hanging in there for a while. Kyler's pretty good. Marvin Harrison's pretty good. They have the weapons there. If they supplement that foundation with a few players like Josh Sweat, bring him in. I know they paid him a big contract, around 20 million, 18 million, somewhere around there. It's pretty solid. I like that. I'll say A.
Yeah, Josh Sweat.
I thought it was 4 years, 76, maybe.
I think it is. Yep. Yeah, $76 million deal in general. I think it was 4 years. Not that the numbers, super matter, because Josh Sweat, I think, was worth his money. And again, when we talk about what these players should make, these teams are going to pay him what they want. I'm going to give it an A as well. Josh Sweat being one of the better D linemen in the league, the way that he was able to actually play with Philadelphia, having multiple standout plays in the playoffs and even in the Super Bowl and in years past has been great. So I'm going to give it an A. The Seahawks signed Sam Darnold in place of Geno Smith being traded.
Yeah, they signed a white Geno Smith, pretty much, which is weird. They I don't understand.
Bro just went there. I love it.
I think if I were to ungrade one, I'd say this. Maybe a B minus. I like Sam Darnold a lot, and I think he can be a bridge quarterback.
Yeah.
And the contract wasn't that bad. 33 a year for a guy that just won 14 games isn't bad. Especially, like I said, Seahawks, they're kind of in this weird mode where they're revamping. So you got a decent quarterback to work with. But it really depends what they put around him this year on how that will turn out. If it's just JSN, yeah, I wouldn't expect it to be pretty if I'm a Seahawks fan.
Yeah. Yeah, he's going to need some more weapons around him for sure, because DK's gone. Tyler Lockett's been released, and I'm going to grade this a C. Sam Darnold, though, and it could really be lower. It's a C because he won 14 games last year, but he was also coached by a great coach in Kevin O'Connell. Also had Jordan Addison. Also had Justin Jefferson. Also had a solid defense in a way, being able to complement him as well. And that was something we've never seen Sam Darnold have or be able to do. And yes, when you talk about being drafted by the Jets, when you talk about being with the Panthers as well, being a little bit of a journeyman, then you end up landing in Minnesota, you start to wonder, because he was a former number 1 overall pick, was Sam Darnold actually this good all along? And he just needed to be in the system. I probably sound harsh on Sam Darnold, but I'm going to give it a C. The Patriots signed Milton Williams.
Yeah, so 4 years in Philly. My question is, was the Super Bowl performance the only thing that we're banking off for Milton Williams? Because his name kind of erupted after the big Super Bowl game. I B to a B plus. The contract was slightly large, but they did jump in front of the Panthers, I believe, to go and snatch him. So they had to pay him what they needed to get him on the team because he was going elsewhere if not. So for the Patriots, they got Vrabel there. He's going to organize that defense. I don't mind it. I like Milton Williams. Let's see what he can do now without such a dominant threat in Jalen Carter beside him. Because of that, I'll stay in between a B and a B plus, but it has the potential of skyrocketing to an A plus.
For sure. I'm going to give this one an A. I think Milton Williams played a great part in the Philadelphia Eagles defensive line through the playoffs, the Super Bowl as well, multiple points in the season where we heard his name being called. And I do think it's more than what he just did in the Super Bowl. Yes, now prisoner of the moment kind of thing. You see what he's able to do in the most recent games that he's played in. But Milton Williams has been, a staple for that Eagles defense, and especially on that defensive line this past season. The Seahawks trade Geno Smith to the Raiders for a 3rd-round pick.
Honestly, AJ, I loved it for the Raiders. I absolutely loved it. I'll give it an A. And I feel like when we're giving these rankings right now, maybe an A sounds like it's a revolutionary change for the franchise. I don't necessarily think that for the Raiders. Like I said, the Raiders haven't won since 2002 in the playoffs. They just need something. So Geno Smith is a legit quarterback that can actually win you games and bring you to the playoffs. He has Brock Bowers. You guys brought back Max Crosby. So in that sense, for sure, I'd give it an A. In the sense of, are we going to make a Super Bowl run? Yeah, it's a D minus. But I don't think that's what I don't think that's what Vegas is aiming for right now. I think success, when you quantify it for different teams, lines up different ways. And for Vegas right now, I think Geno Smith is a good fit, especially back with Pete Carroll.
Yeah, being with Pete Carroll is a great matchup for the two of them. No question about it. I'm going to give it a B for the Raiders. The only reason it's not an A is because we've seen Geno Smith just recently come to life within the last 3 years of being with the Seattle Seahawks and, further extending his NFL career. And when you talk about what the Raiders have needed at quarterback as well, it's not a Jimmy Garoppolo. It's not an Aiden O'Connell,
right.
Probably about the same as what Derek Carr was his last year. I personally think Geno Smith is way better. I'm in full-fledged Derek Carr experience over here in New Orleans. You guys already know how the hell I feel about that. I'm going to give it a B for the Raiders, and I'll give it a C for the Seahawks, right up there with the C grade that I gave for them signing Sam Darnold, because what are you doing? I mean, you really believe that Sam Darnold, who flourished with great coaching, which I'm not saying Mike McDonald can't be that, but such elite weapons. I think Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison as a wide receiver duo are kind of slept on, because I see a lot of these rankings, Chase and Higgins, Nakua and Adams, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. And while I respect that, we're talking about Justin Jefferson and the best wide receiver in the draft a couple of years ago. Now, let me reel it back in. When you saw what Sam Darnold was with that, there's no DK Metcalf. There's no Tyler Lockett. Yes, there's a JSN, and this is probably a real chance for him to emerge as that number one receiver, have that 12 to 1,400 receiving yard season, really be that Ohio State Jackson Smith and Jigba that we came to know and love. C for the Seahawks, B for the Raiders. Najee Harris signing with the Chargers. I still don't understand why the Steelers, besides financial reasons, didn't want to pick up his 5th year. But what you got for this grade, JV?
Yeah, I'd probably say B. Greg Roman's got a run first system with the Chargers, so that'll go well over with Najee Harris. But I think you're gonna get what you get with Najee Harris, and you can't get upset. I don't think the ceiling is super high, but the floor is also a little high as well. I think you're gonna get a little bit of guaranteed production out of him. I wouldn't expect the world, but a running back that's been a veteran now for a few years in a running system, I don't mind it. So I'd say B. It's pretty average.
I'm going to say B as well. I think it's very remarkable that Najee Harris in his first 4 years in the NFL has rushed for 1,000 yards in each season. I know the last couple of seasons have been by 40 and 50 yards. So, a couple of first downs, couple of extra plays, whatever you want to say about it, right? But he still cracked the 1,000-yard rushing season in his first 4 seasons in the league. And if I remember correctly, he's up there with some of the elite names like a Chris Johnson, like a LaDainian Tomlinson to do that within their first 4 years in the league. So I get it when when these teams make cap cuts and when they have, free agency coming around, they really have to be smart. And I think Jaylen Warren was showing something that they liked. They might go get a running back in this draft, not really sure. I didn't like it for the Steelers. I'd probably give them a C- for not picking up Najee Harris 5th-year option and or wanting to extend him in some way, but I'll give it a B for the Chargers. Last one here as we grade a ton of NFL free agency moves, and we'll have much more coming later in the week as well. Hassan Reddick signs a 1-year deal with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I did not expect him to go here.
Yeah, I don't know how much he signed for, AJ, but I don't know because I haven't seen him play in a long time. So it really depends what kind of output he's going to put on the field. Maybe like a B. It depends what the contract is. I don't know if you can grab that for me, AJ. But
1 year, $14 million, $12 million guaranteed. I feel like that's fair for a guy of Hassan Reddick's ilk. Really do.
It's like you can back out after 1 year. Like it's pretty much you're done. If he proves he's worth it, then you're keeping him. If not, he's gone. So I'd say like B. I haven't seen him play in a while, so I just have to say B and keep it average until I see a little something.
I'm going to say B also. He only had 1 sack last year. He held out last year or the year before trying to get a contract. He didn't look too good on that Jets defense. But in the 2 years with the Eagles, 11 sacks. The year before that, 16 sacks the year that they went to the Super Bowl. With the Panthers, he had 11 sacks in 2021. With the Cardinals in 2020, he had 12.5. But the 3 years prior, his first 3 years in the league, he had a total of 7.5 sacks. So he really took his game up to another level in his last year with the Cardinals. And then once he went on to the Panthers and the Eagles. So I think we'll see him really get back to a good bit of that. I could see anywhere from a 7.5 to a 9 sack season. If he gets double digits, I think the contract is well worth it. And we know that sacks aren't everything that they're cracked up to be. Like, we still like quarterback pressures. We still like quarterback hits. We still like the advanced stats like disruption rate. And I think Hassan Reddick's going to be a really big time contributor in that. So there you have it. That was 13, if I counted correctly, NFL free agency moves that we graded here on episode 96 of the NFL with AJL. There were quite a few other ones that we could have went through, but we didn't want to be here for an hour and a half talking about free agency because we know it definitely spits out that amount of content. Next topic here on the show. Kirk Cousins asked for a meeting with the Falcons owner, Arthur Blank, got said meeting, asked for a trade to a team where he can actually start next year because we know Michael Penix is the guy in Atlanta now, but the Falcons don't plan on moving him, releasing him, trading him, anything of that aspect. So let me ask you, JV, who should call the Falcons to take them out of their misery with Kirk Cousins? Even though the Falcons said they don't want to, I think if someone picked up that phone and gave them a well enough offer, they would entertain it. I mean, you can't not, because this is one of the worst contracts maybe in Atlanta sports history.
Well, you just answered the question for yourself. Absolutely nobody should realistically be calling the Falcons about the Kirk Cousins contract. And it is so remarkable. And I would have loved to be in the room when the Atlanta front office decided to pay a quarterback coming off a season-ending injury, going into his 36th year on planet Earth. $45 million per year over 4 years. That means at age 40, you have Kirk Cousins at $45 million per year. That is unreal. So how bad does that contract look today compared to when it was signed? It's just the same. It's looked terrible ever since it happened. And what team, if it were to be anybody, it would be a team notorious for doing stupid things like the Cleveland Browns. I don't think a team with a competent or even half competent front office and organization would actually want to invest in that. And I like Kirk he's portrayed as such a great guy. He was in the quarterback documentary, seemed like, family guy, loved what he was doing, loved football, bought into it. But there's a time and a place. And I think Kirk Cousins is kind of, he's gotten over the hump of his peak, if you want to call it a peak. And now he's kind of slowly deteriorating into retirement. I don't think he moves. I don't think anybody wants him. And I don't think the Falcons want to cut him because of the dead cap.
And see, I know I don't understand NFL numbers all the way around, but when I hear things like, I don't want to cut him for the dead cap, okay, so you want more money to spend this year, but at the end of it all, you're still going to have to pay him until you move off of him or however the contracts are worked out, right? Like, don't take that for face value. And I think what happened recently in the league for really me to adopt that mindset was when the Broncos cut Russell Wilson. They just flat out let him go. It's what I think the Saints should do with Derek Carr. It's more than likely what the Falcons should do with Kirk Cousins, because I feel kind of silly defending Kirk Cousins last year and even advocating for the Falcons. The Falcons signed Kirk Cousins last year to this type of money because they were traumatized over the Desmond Ridder experience that happened and over the Marcus Mariota experience, and then he ends up quitting on the team. It was the Matt Ryan 2.0 era. I mean, let's just call it what it is. Kirk Cousins was a guy who was throwing to Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson and guys like TJ Hawkinson, who were brought over in a trade, being able to target Dalvin Cook out of the backfield, all very good players at the time, and some of them still to this day. And now, the Falcons didn't have anybody really efficiently who could deliver the ball to a Bijan, to a Kyle Pitts, to a Drake London, to this year, a Darnell Mooney, I'm trying to think of the other receiver that they had. I can't remember off the top of my head, but either way, like, they wanted someone who could deliver the football at a high level. And that's what they got in Kirk Cousins for about 10 weeks. And then we see him get hurt. Ironically, he got hurt against my Saints. We see him hampered later on in the season. He covers it up, comes out in Super Bowl week, says, hey, yeah, I was actually hurt. So that's going to come down on him. That's going to come down on the Falcons. The Falcons already got in trouble for illegally tampering with him, even though the league allows you 2 full days before free agency opens. They adopted this 13 years ago in 2012. They allow you to tamper early, and the Falcons still step in and end up doing that. And it looks like on his way out, whenever it's going to be, the Falcons are possibly going to get hit with that as well. I think they were, if I'm not mistaken, I saw a report about them getting investigated for, Kirk Cousins kind of covering up this injury. So I didn't blame the Falcons for signing him. Now, the money wasn't the greatest. When you talk about $100 million, guaranteed, wasn't the greatest. And outside of the Achilles injury, Kirk Cousins had missed 1 or 2 games, if I recall, from actual injury. The only other one he missed because he didn't pass a COVID test or didn't pass the COVID protocol, which, 75% of the league that year ended up not being able to play in certain games because of the COVID protocol. So I understand them wanting someone to deliver the football at a high level because they have a lot of talent offensively. If anyone were to call and trade for this, because again, not only when you trade for the player, you're trading for the contract as well. That's why we'll see a lot, hey, this person just traded for them, and also they're working on a new deal like immediately. That's because if they don't like the money, they're going to restructure, they're going to do a buyout, break out of it, whatever they can do. Again, I'm not extremely savvy to what these teams can do with the numbers because I feel like they can kind of do anything. We saw Tom Brady get removed from the cap with the Patriots. It felt like multiple times. If someone's going to call and trade for Kirk Cousins in that contract, I think it would be a stupid team like the Browns, just like you said. He's heavily rumored to the Browns.
Yeah.
I also could see the Steelers doing it because what do they have in Russ? What's really going on in the quarterback room? But they do have a DK. They do have a Pickens. They do have a Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington. They had a Najee Harris until he got out of the building. That's really the only 2 teams. The Titans are going to draft a quarterback. There's no question about that. And I think the Giants are going to draft a quarterback as well, or they're going to land some bozo like Aaron Rodgers. Let's just call it what it is. And the contract looks so bad. Like, it was already looking bad after he was looking rough down the stretch, and then Michael Penix came in to fill in for him. And it was bad when they did the 4 years, $180 million. And it was bad when we figured out that it was $100 million guaranteed. And now it just continues to look worse as time goes on. So I feel for Falcons fans in this aspect because I know what it's like to overpay for a player and then not even get a full season out of him. I mean, the Falcons literally got, 10 games? Like, they barely had Kirk Cousins play for them for like 100 days, basically. And then Michael Penix came in and took it over, man.
Yeah.
So.
And then it was like, oh, Michael Penix is the guy too. Like, he's our guy. So it is a win for the Falcons, but at what cost? Like, you could have saved yourself and just drafted Penix.
Yep, which people were freaking out about at the time. And again, another horrible aspect for the contract because Michael Penix ended up getting drafted. Like, they got to decide here. They got to make a decision on when it comes down to the quarterback position. All right, JV, give me the best team to land these recently released or players that are requesting / looking for a trade in NFL free agency. Give me the best team to land these players in free agency. First up, Zadarius Smith.
I went Panthers. There's a lot of spots he can go. Any team in need of a lineman can go after Za'Darius, but I picked the
I'm going to
Panthers.
say the Bengals. And with Sam Hubbard retiring, you also have Trey Hendrickson, who was offered 30 to 32 million a year. Crazy. Not that he doesn't deserve it. Before the Bengals allowed him to seek a trade, I think if you're looking at a Bengals team who was already struggling, they just are probably going to lose their top two pass rushers. Zadarius Smith has to go over to the Bengals and make an impact. Next name up, Tyler Lockett.
Raiders with Geno makes the most sense to me. Another team I had was the Cowboys because it just seems like a Cowboys thing to do to sign an aging receiver that is kind of lacking in production.
Yeah, before we got on the show, I just saw the news break that the Cowboys, thankfully for my New Orleans Saints, they signed Peyton Turner from us. It was like a 1-year, $3.5 million deal. Peyton Turner's a bust. He's probably the worst draft pick that the Saints have had over the last few years. I remember when I was doing a show with a couple shows back before the NFL with AJL, I stayed at the studio to watch the pick come across the screen. And when they selected Peyton Turner, I was like, who the hell is this guy? Like, he wasn't on anybody's boards, and we just burned a first on him. So to compliment on what you said about Tyler Lockett potentially to the Cowboys, yeah, that would be a very Cowboys thing to do. Speaking of the Saints, former coach Sean Payton, I think he would look good with the Denver Broncos. I think Tyler Lockett would look very solid with the Denver Broncos. You talk about how Bo Nix was in year one. You see that Cortland Sutton had a 1,000-yard season, but then after that, Marvin Mims coming in at about 550, 600 yards on the year. So they need a veteran to get in there. Not that Cortland isn't, but they need a veteran to come in that's been in the league for a decade like Tyler Lockett has, really mentor that wide receiver room, and still be able to produce himself. Joey Bosa.
Yeah, I believe I just saw that he went to the Niners
Really?
today. Yeah, I believe so.
He's in
I think they
talks.
paired him up because the Niners got rid of
Javon
they
Hargrave.
got rid of one of their ends. They got rid of Hargrave, and I think Leonard as well, I believe.
Leonard, was it Leonard Floyd?
Leonard Floyd, I believe. Yeah. So pairing him with his brother is I mean, it's interesting. Joey Bosa, the production there hasn't been crazy, but he's getting a little older, but I still think that would be dope.
The Falcons signed Leonard Floyd, bro. Woo!
Oh,
that's
wow.
big. That's big for Atlanta. That is big for Atlanta. Wow. They finally go and get a pass rusher. Finally, a guy who can get off of the edge and really help the Falcons out. Wow, wow, wow. We will definitely be talking about that one on Friday's show. Yeah, Joey Bosa is in talks with the Niners. I'm going to say the Niners as well because they did just lose Leonard Floyd, because they did lose Javon Hargrave, both very talented guys. And I feel like anyone who plays on that Niners anyone who really plays on that Niners defensive line, like, they're always going to be good because that's just really the system that they run. And it seems like they don't ever miss on the defensive trenches anyway. So yeah, for Joey Bosa, I'm going to say the Niners, get him in there, team up with his brother, hopefully get him more healthy. And more than anything, the Niners do need it. Darius Slay.
So he's linked to Pittsburgh, and I thought he went to Pittsburgh, but he hasn't.
It's not official
yet. And interesting enough, I think the best landing spot is Philly. I think returning to Philly is actually the best way things could land for Darius Slay, especially with CJ Gardner-Johnson now leaving, because we know they had that beef. I think Slay in Philly is the best landing spot.
Yeah, I'm going to say Philly as well. Bring him back. Have him give more mentorship to Cooper DeJean, to Quinyon Mitchell. Have him just still be on that defense, because we see the Eagles defense is kind of getting shelled out. I mean, they lost Milton Williams. They lost Josh Sweat. Who else did they just lose? Oh, CJ Gardner-Johnson, of course. Like that defense is – yeah, Isaiah Rodgers as well. Yeah, they're getting shelled out from the best defense in the league, one of the youngest defense to ever win a Super Bowl. I'm going to say the Eagles for Slay as well. Get him back home. Let him play one more good season. And yes, he is in talks with the Steelers. It's not official yet. Mike Florio of is it Pro Football Talk, I believe, is saying that the Eagles might try to get trade compensation for Darius Slay, which I believe if they're knowledgeable, which I know they are, shout out to the owner and the GM, they'll do that. Von Miller.
Yeah, Vaughn, I mean, watching him as a Bills fan this year, like there was a slight deterioration
Yeah.
for sure, which comes with age. I think I think when guys get older, they get more familiar and comfortable with going back to teams that they've played on. So I had Von Miller with either the Broncos or the Rams, returning to two teams that could probably contend, could probably use a
Old
veteran pass
homes.
rusher, and he could return and I mean, he already knows the system, right? Like he's already been there, done that, return, play a small aspect in the defense. I could
Yeah.
see it happen.
I'm going to go the Bears here. The Bears are beefing up in the trenches. Again, we talked about the 3 linemen they signed earlier. We talked about Grady Jarrett going over there as well. And I think you just bring in a guy like Von Miller who is able to mentor, you know, a young defense, a defense that's looking to grow. I almost was thinking about the Broncos here for a second, but no, thinking of your take and then how he's been there before. Yeah, I really think Von Miller to the Bears would be a good addition. You know, they're building up in the trenches. And when you talk about a linebacker slash edge rusher that could just really go in and mentor a Tremaine Edmonds, that can really go in and mentor a TJ Edwards and still possibly provide some snaps and some pressures and some hits and some sacks for defense. I love the Bears here. Last one up, Trey Hendrickson.
I think the Commanders are the Colts. So the Commanders got rid of Josh Allen. He's gone. And they have the cap space for Hendrickson, and they are a contender. So bringing an all-pro on the line, it makes sense. And then the Colts, they've been beefing up that defense all year long. They have some quarterback questions. Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson is an abysmal quarterback battle. But if they're looking to continue adding to the defense, I think Hendrickson. So Commanders are Colts for
I'm
me.
going to go the Lions. I think the Lions would be a great fit for Trey Hendrickson, returning him back to the NFC. You see,
They'll land a D lineman at
yeah,
some
yeah,
point, I think, because they lost to
Mhm.
Darius now, and they need
Right.
something. They need something to pair because they've had a lot of injury
Yep,
problems too. That was the thing that
yep,
burned them last year.
yep. I think Trey Hendrickson could be great on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson, and even Aleem McNeil, who's over there as well. Detroit could make a splash move with getting Trey Hendrickson in. And this guy just works his ass off everywhere he goes. He's a good Christian man. He's always posting great stuff on social media. The fact that a $32 million deal for a guy who led the league in sacks wasn't enough. Hey, brother, I respect it. I respect the fact that you want to go get that bag because you only get paid like this. Like, you're lucky to get 2 big contracts in the NFL. That's what we always say. If you can get to a second big contract as a player, you're doing something right. Or you're the Cleveland Browns paying Deshaun Watson or Myles Garrett. Obviously,
Yeah.
not Deshaun Watson. Obviously, Myles Garrett being the better of the two. So I'm going to say the Detroit Lions to land Trey Hendrickson. Y'all get in the chat, in the comments. Let us know the best team to land these NFL free agents that are still looking for a home. What did you think of the discussion with Kirk Cousins and the Falcons drama? And as we handed out grades for NFL free agency moves. JV, before I let you go and get into the Saints talk, please plug yourself, bro. Tell us about the content you're making. I want to get you all the support over there on the new YouTube channel, brother.
I appreciate it, AJ. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, JV Show, The Real JV Show. You can find me in all those places. We're pumping out content all off season long and heading into the 2025 year. So I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate the plug, and I'm sure I'll catch you soon.
100%,
AJ.
man. Thank you for jumping on as well. I will see you shortly, man. Take care.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
All right. That was JV, as always, jumping in on the show, chopping up NFL free agency with us. Again, chopping up some of these off-season moves. A lot of this off-season news. It's been great to be able to talk about it, to hold this type of platform for you guys, and to have a great guest like JV on as well. As always, we are sponsored by Buy and Sell with AJL for all your worldwide professional real estate needs. Whether you're looking to buy a home, sell a home, or invest in real estate, Buy and Sell with AJL is the real estate team that you need to be working with. If you're looking for a monthly neighborhood market report for a property that you own, or you're interested in how the value is looking, if you're looking for a monthly newsletter, monthly value emails, even a monthly real estate meetup, hit them up on social media at Buy and Sell with AJL. This is the real estate team that you need to be working with. I'm also working with a sponsorship for HyperX as well. It is the gaming and podcast equipment company. I've been able to be blessed enough to come into interactions with them, trying to get my account sorted out so then I can give you guys a code, obviously, to be able to earn a little bit of a kickback off of the products that you buy. But if you're looking to start a podcast, if you are looking to get some gaming equipment, get some podcasting equipment, hyperx.com is the company that you need to check out. If you go ahead and go over there and buy something, I totally don't mind. I believe in plug-in, good businesses just for the good faith of it. But once we get that affiliate link, I will definitely let you guys know, and we will be able to rock and roll as well. Of course, that QR code is every bit of social media and podcast content. If you can't find us, you're simply not looking hard enough on all platforms. A little bit of New Orleans Saints free agency talk and updates here before we get out of episode 96 on the NFL with AJL. And we will be back on Friday with episode 97 because the NFL offseason is rolling. The NFL draft is coming up. I haven't even dug into the NFL draft yet, and I couldn't be more excited to bring you guys the content. The Saints traded a 7th-round pick to the New England Patriots for defensive tackle Davon Godchaux. I really, really like this move because the Saints were one of the worst defenses in the NFL last year, 30th in yards per game. This was with a defensive-minded head coach being at the helm for us before he got fired. 30th in yards per game, 31st in rush yards per game, 27th in pass yards per game, and oddly enough, 19th overall in points per game. And we were just constantly gashed by the run. I mean, when week 3 came around, when the Saints were 2-0 facing the Eagles at home, and Saquon Barkley just kept going off and kept getting long run after broken tackle, after touchdown, after first down, I kind of knew we were in for it then. And I wasn't sure if it was just Saquon really breaking out and being that old school Saquon Barkley that we've come to know and love, and now that we've seen of what he's capable of at a very high level, rushing for 2,000 yards with the Eagles. I knew we were done for then. I mean, when you give up 172 yards to the Eagles, when you give up 277 yards, what was it? Is this dude's name? Bucky Irving, a 22-year-old drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, going off on the New Orleans Saints, us giving up 277 rushing yards the first time we played the Bucs, getting blown out, letting up 51 points defensively. I knew it was over with. When we gave up 179 yards to him the second time, I knew we needed a defensive tackle. 225 rushing yards to the Broncos, 181 rushing yards to the Atlanta Falcons the second time we played them, 188 rushing yards to the Green Bay Packers. Now, yes, we did give up those two, Josh Jacobs, Bijan Robinson, a plethora of players with the Broncos, not even a premier running back with, the Bucs, and obviously Saquon Barkley with the Eagles. I knew that we were in for it. I knew that we needed to go get a defensive tackle, and that's why we literally came in as the second worst rush defense in the NFL. There's 32 teams. We were 31st. So just let that sink in. For a franchise that at one point, Dennis Allen was the head coach. Before that, he was a defensive coordinator. The streak of the Saints not letting up a 100-yard rusher in, I can't remember the exact number, 50, 60 games. It was an NFL record. Dennis Allen was at the helm for that. I know the Saints were very beat up this year, but even the defense was starting to look worn. The defense was quitting on their coach. You had Richard Sherman on the freaking broadcast saying that the Saints were playing like they wanted their coach to get fired. I knew it was over. And when you talk about Davon Godchaux and what he's actually been able to do, at one point last year, he had 18 run stops, which did lead the league. Now, obviously, he did not end the season leading the league and such, but he made 94.4% of his tackle opportunities, which was second highest among all defensive tackles. What have the New Orleans Saints been bad at for the last couple of years? Tackling, whether it's in a bunch, whether it's in the open field, and Tyrann Mathieu, Alontae Taylor, they come to mind a lot. As much as I hate to say it, at some point I'm like, get these guys off the field. Having a defensive tackle who can stuff the run, who can actually get his tackle opportunities is great. And for a 7th-round pick, I'll take it. I know we need all the capital that we can get. And a lot of you are going to come in here and say, oh, well, the sacks, the pressures, the TFLs, those are very nice stats. But if you're sporting something like a 94.4% tackle opportunity, which the Saints have lacked, and all we had to give up was a 7th-round pick, and this guy's next to a Carl Granderson, and this guy's next to a Chase Young, and he's next to a Brian Bresee, the Saints defensive line might be looking okay next year. They really could. Anything that can help us bolster the second worst run defense that we just fielded this year, I'll 100% take it. The Saints re-signed Chase Young for 3 years, $51 million. And at first glance of this move, I'm wondering how and why the Saints signed him to this deal, considering they were still negative $7 million in cap space when this signing happened, considering that Chase Young, yes, did have 5.5 sacks last year. There were times where he didn't look like he could tackle great, like he didn't look like he was a former second overall pick, like he didn't have it in the tank to still be a top edge rusher in this league like he was drafted to be. And we know that he dealt with injury history in Washington. And then we saw the Niners be able to grab him, and he played in the Super Bowl for them. But then the Saints sign him knowing that he has a neck injury. And I feel like a little bit of that actually played into his play this year. I mean, I really do. Because when you look at the Saints bringing back Chase Young, again, I was shocked. He did have a forced fumble. He did have 21 solo tackles, but again, only had 5.5 sacks on the year. Now, I will give Chase Young his credit because he played all 17 games this season, something that he has never done in his career is play every single game. He played he played 16 games with Washington. He played 16 games in totality last season, 9 with San Fran, 7 with Washington. The season before that, he got hurt and played 3 in 2022 with Washington. He played 9 in 2021 with Washington, and then he played 15 games in 2020 with Washington. So let's see, 1, 2. Okay, we can say that 3 out of his 5 years in the league, he has played all of his games. But this year was the first true year he played every game of a 17-game season and just every game in general of the regular season. So I like to see his health coming back around. So, in terms of games played, that didn't necessarily hinder him, but I'll give him some credit. He had 66 pressures on the year, which was tied for 7th among all edge rushers. Now, I know you might come at me and say, oh, AJ, why are you talking about the pressures? It was 7th. Okay, well, pressures lead to sacks. Pressures lead to disruptions. Pressures lead to quarterback hits. You don't always have to sack the quarterback. If you can just knock him to the ground and let him know that your presence is being felt, shake him up, rough him up a little. If you can get in there and hurry him, have him rush a throw that could lead to an interception, get in there and pressure him into a difficult situation other than what he's running through his brain, and then finally get in there and be able to sack him. So I think pressures hold a lot of value. I think they hold a lot of value. And just while I have you guys on here, I want to see where he actually came out at. If I can, let's see if I can see it correctly. Where did he come in at for TFLs? I wish I would have pulled this beforehand. Uh-oh. Are we freezing up? Did we freeze up? No, I don't think we did. Okay. Let's see. TFLs. Okay, so he wasn't in the top 50. Carl Granderson had more than him with 9. Yeah, you got to really go down. Okay, Chase Young was 75th in the league with 8 TFLs, but he was 7th overall. Tackles for loss is what TFLs are. But he was 7th overall in pressures. So again, more pressures can lead to TFLs, sacks, disruption rate, hurries, quarterback hits. Like, we will take those. And when you look at the deal that he got, I believe it's $17 million a year. Yeah, $17 million a year for an edge rusher like Chase Young, who can, on occasion, perform up to some of the best defensive ends in the league. Now, I'm not going to say he's top 10, maybe not even top 15 or top 20. But doing your job by getting to/around the quarterback is what you're paid for. And again, we know that the Saints were very bad defensively last year. We know that they did not have a lot of luck on the defensive side of the ball at all. And it's, when you looked at the money, when you really looked at the money, I'm like, okay. But again, just like I said on the show earlier with JV, these teams are going to pay, these players what they want to pay them. The New Orleans Saints had 39 sacks last year. So they were 20th in the league on that. Thank y'all for bearing with me to look up some of those extra stats for you. They were 20th in the league last year in total sacks. I think bringing Chase Young back gives you a chance to improve that. The Saints lose Paulson Adebo, Peyton Turner, thank God, and Will Harris to free agency. Will Harris to the Commanders, Peyton Turner to the the Cowboys, and then Paulson Adebo to the Giants. Both Paulson Adebo got a decent contract. Peyton Turner got a little over $3 million, and then Will Harris signed a 2-year, $10 million deal. Will Harris at one point for the Saints last season was kind of a highlight of the defense. We remember he had a breakout game or two. He was hitting big. He was making plays. He was disrupting, the overall game plan for these teams that we were playing. So it did hurt to see him go. But again, knowing that the Saints were as much over the cap as they were, knowing that they were not in a position to bring in a lot of premier players. I mean, we understand that the New Orleans Saints have been in salary cap hell, or what feels like purgatory, for quite a while now. And there's no further reason to need to even explain it or talk about it. Peyton Turner was the biggest bust that the New Orleans Saints have drafted maybe in the last decade, but especially in the last 5 years. So like I said earlier on the show with JV, when I was doing Petty Sports, if y'all been following me my entire podcasting career, you know that I was previously with Petty Sports before this. For the Saints to take Peyton Turner, and I'm looking right at Sean Payton and Mickey Loomis when I say this. I'm looking you in the windows of your soul, SP and Gumsmackin' Mick. When y'all took Peyton Turner in the first round, with him not even being, I think, on the first 3 rounds draft boards, I was like, who the F is this guy? Truly, who the hell is this guy? And he's had 5.5 sacks his entire NFL career? And that's supposed to be worth a first-round pick? Honestly, that's what you're telling me. People want to talk about, he just came off of his best season. Yeah, with 2 sacks. He's been hurt, the entire time he's been here, feels like. He played in 2 games in 2023. He played in 8 games in 2022. And the year we drafted him, he played in 5. He's got 5 career sacks, including no sacks in 2023. He's a bust. I'm sorry, but he is. And I was so happy that the Cowboys came and got him from us, because we are not surprisingly didn't pick up his 5th-year option. And, you maybe can look at the Chase Young signing and be like, okay, Adam, well, how much more production did Chase Young really give you than Peyton Turner? 3.5 more sacks, pressures. The total amount of sacks in one season with the Saints, Chase Young with 5.5, that Peyton Turner had in 4 years with 5 total. Again, 2 sacks last year as a defensive end, where your job is to get to the quarterback. So, it could have been a situation where it's like, could they have brought him back because they didn't have a lot of options? No, hell no, absolutely no. And I'm glad that we didn't. And then, of course, Paulson Adebo going over to the Giants. He gets a decent contract. Paulson Adebo is kind of a north-south, yin and yang, Jekyll and Hyde player to the fans. And, I don't think so much to the franchise, but we knew when Paulson Adebo broke his leg that was going to be it for him with the Saints. I can't remember if it was the Falcons game or if it was the Broncos game, but we knew that Paulson Adebo had probably played his last snap and last down as a New Orleans Saint in that uniform. And I feel like Paulson Adebo was either making a great play or getting pass interference thrown on him. He was either picking the ball, defending the pass, or he was tugging on a jersey and getting a holding call, getting a defensive pass interference call. So again, a very north and south type of player. I would have loved for him to rehab and stay with us, especially since we lost Marshawn Lattimore. But that gives guys like Kool-Aid McKinstry, that gives guys like Alontae Taylor really, a leg up to be able to prove themselves as that CB1, as that top flight corner that the Saints really need. And I believe in both Kool-Aid and Alontae Taylor that they can do fairly well. I do. So the Saints did lose 3 players to free agency. Like I said, they lost Paulson Adebo to the Giants. They lost Peyton Turner to the Cowboys. Thank you, God, again. And they lost Will Harris to the Washington Commanders. That was episode 96 of the NFL with AJL. I appreciate everybody jumping into tonight's show because, again, you could have been anywhere else in the world, but you were right here tapped in with me on the hour-long podcast, and I'm forever grateful for that. Thank y'all again for the love that you've been giving me on TikTok and Instagram, especially with the Seahawks video. We're at almost 300,000 plays on TikTok last time I looked, creeping towards 150, 160,000 total plays on Instagram. The followers, the comments, the engagement is coming in. I'm going to keep the content coming for you guys. We're going to keep the podcast coming on a more consistent level as well. We will be back Friday with more NFL free agency news. We will be talking about the NFL draft as well. But before you get out of here, please make sure to like and share the stream with anyone you think would enjoy watching this podcast. Subscribe on YouTube, hit the bell so you never miss a post, and that QR code, as always, especially to the Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube as well, Facebook, Twitter, all of it's there for you guys to go check it out. At NFL with AJL on all social media and podcast platforms. Might be the NFL with AJL. I dropped the off social media so NFL could be the first word for like search purposes. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. I put so much heart and soul in 2025. The blessings have been short form content again. We've been back since January, but we posted every single day in February. We're doing the same thing for the rest of eternity with this podcast. I can guarantee you guys that. Again, I love y'all. I need y'all, and I will see you in episode 97 on Friday.